Well, we are just a few weeks into the new year, and economic development news already taking center stage around Indiana. In particular, here in central Indiana, there's Indy 11's new soccer stadium proposal. Also, prospects for a casino being talked about again in downtown Indianapolis. National site selection firm KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp return now to weigh in on some of these ambitious projects. And welcome to the program. Happy New Year.
You too.
To you both. I mentioned off the top the Indy 11 proposal. The city, the state's professional soccer franchise has talked about for several years now a stadium, wanting a new stadium. They're playing now in Lucas Oil Stadium, started at IUPUI, but they want a permanent home of their own. This latest proposal is what? It's a stadium, but also a multifaceted development with retail and a number of elements to it. Tim, we'll start with you. Your thoughts.
I think it's an ambitious idea. Sports is obviously a strength of ours here in Indianapolis. I think the location is going to be key. How does it get funded? That's going to be a key. It's something that we've talked about for a couple of years now, but there does seem to be some serious talk around it, and I think it's going to get a lot of attention.
I think a bill's been introduced to the State House to create a sports district and to drive revenue from that. Tim, you mentioned the location. Katie, Broad Ripple is a proposed site. Whether or not that plays out, we'll see. But the old Broad Ripple High School in that area there. Your thoughts on a soccer stadium and a bigger development around in Broad Ripple?
Well, you know, at first the location took me by surprise, but the more I thought about it, it really is kind of an interesting and compelling location. I mean, there's a lot. The devil's always in the details, and there's a very active neighborhood group there, and I know a lot of parties will have to be involved. But the economic impact of this sort of thing is huge, and I think it plays to our strength at being really strong in the sports arena. So all of that's really interesting, and I think for Broad Ripple, it would be a good location for both millennials who are really into soccer, but also for young families and a destination that way.
I'll get you guys to go out on a limb here if you think it's going to happen. As you mentioned, Indianapolis' reputation is largely built on sports, and doing these types of deals. A lot of moving parts on this one. Do you think it happens?
I think it does. I don't know that it will happen this year, but soccer is so popular and a lot of the strengths that Katie talked about, I think it's going to be inevitable, but the timing will be the question mark.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, another kind of a hot button issue that's been talked about at different stages over the past number of years is a casino, in particular in downtown Indianapolis. A lot of people have always said, hey, why not Union Station? Put it in that facility. As you look at the prospects for a potential casino in downtown Indy, good idea, bad idea? Do you think it has the support to actually happen?
I don't know if it'll have the support politically just because it's such a lightning rod issue, but you look at a lot of communities, St. Louis, New Orleans, obviously Vegas, and we have such a big convention business that linking a casino there, it's been very successful elsewhere and could fund a lot of improvements in Center Township.
Yeah, it would be an amenity. The question will be, will there be too many cons associated with it that it can't get the legislative and community support that it needs?
A lot of issues before the legislature this year. One of them, and we had Fisher's Mayor Scott Fadness on the show talking about investment hubs that being proposed. Essentially, regions around the state would be able to raise money to fund economic development projects, kind of an extension of the Regional Cities Initiative. Your thoughts on that? A different kind of idea. Matt Greller from what was Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, he was on the show as well. They like the chances for this passing.
I think it would be great. It would be nice to get a funded mechanism from state to local government. They have, local government has so few tools in the toolbox. This would be amazing, but there are a lot of hurdles to it. I know you suggested a couple.
Yeah, I think the fact that Mayor Fadness is involved, that gives it some weight. It is a good idea. We really struggle with regionalism, but the challenge will be you have to get the legislature to approve those local taxes being enacted. Then they need to be passed, and then the regions have to figure out how to spend the money. So there are a lot of obstacles.
So if the legislature does pass the mechanism to do it, you think there's a real challenge? And I agree with you. regional participation, collaboration. It's getting better, I think, but it certainly has a ways to go.
We would have to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to collaboration, because it will be a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. As we look at some of the other issues, teacher pay is a big issue. Hate crimes legislation likely will get a lot, already is, but will get more attention. The governor has come out in support of that, a specific hate crimes law that he thinks should be passed. Where do you see that going? And the impact potentially that just this debate can have on economic development and efforts to attract talent?
Well, I applaud Governor Holcomb for coming out and being very vocal on it. I think that will lend a lot of strength to getting something appropriate passed. It boggles my mind a little bit that this is such a difficult struggle for our state, but I'm optimistic that we'll get something accomplished, and it's so important because to be one of 5 states in the whole country that does not have this legislation is a real, mark against us when it comes to securing new deals.
Yeah, if we don't pass it this year, I think it's got the danger of being an albatross where we've been able to say we're past the RFRA issue,
Right.
but if we are still talking about this come this time next year, I think we're going to be where we were all over again.
Yeah, Ann Mertlow on the show last week said this is the one chance to kind of put RFRA totally in the
Yes.
rear view mirror. One other thing quickly I want to touch on, 60 Minutes had a story talking about how 40% of human jobs could be replaced in the next 15 years by artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
That's a scary number. And as you look at a state like Indiana, manufacturing state, and some of the other things we have going on, what are the ramifications as you think about economic development in the future? How does that affect things?
I hate to sound like Pollyanna, but I really think it is an opportunity. We are looking right now at VOTEC training and pipelines of younger people who are going into the skilled trades. If we're smart about it and we're proactive and we train in the areas that will not be commoditized and taken over by robots, then I think we've got a good opportunity.
Yeah, the key is going to be we don't stick our head in the sand, that we get on top of it and we're not following the leader, because we've got to get on it.
Yep, only have about 30 seconds, but did want to mention Skip Cooker, who both of you worked with in many forms over the years. Longtime director over at Hancock Economic Development, passed away after a tough battle with cancer. He was really one of the good guys in the field.
He stood out against his competition, and we saw him on December 18th, just a few weeks before he passed, selling his community for a deal.
Yeah.
So, great guy.
If you want to see his legacy, just drive through Hancock County.
Yeah.
You see what the businesses that he attracted and kept there.
Yeah, and that momentum will continue, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with Skip's family as well. Thank you, as always, for being
Gary.
here
Thanks,
and for some great perspectives on economic development in 2019. We'll see you next month.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks.
right, and we'll be right back after this.